Welcome to our channel. Today we're diving into a serious topic, the top 10 countries you might want to avoid as a tourist, especially if you're a black person. Now I know some of you might be thinking, Trevor, isn't that a bit intense? And to that I say yes it is, but the truth is the world isn't always a kumbaya circle, especially when you're traveling while black. We're going to unpack the reasons why these countries might not be the friendliest for black travelers. We're talking political instability, racial discrimination, and good old-fashioned danger. So buckle up, because things are about to get real. First up, we've got Syria. Now, Syria might be known for its ancient history and beautiful architecture, but let's be real, it's also known for being a war zone. And I'm not talking about a metaphorical war zone, like trying to find decent Wi-Fi at a hostel. I'm talking about actual bombs, actual fighting, the kind of stuff that makes you miss your connecting flight. The Syrian civil war has been raging for over a decade, and it's not exactly known for its racial sensitivity training. The country is in a state of chaos, and the last thing you want to be is a tourist, let alone a black tourist, caught in the middle of it. Think about it, you're trying to enjoy some hummus. Meanwhile, there's a tank rolling down the street. It's not exactly the relaxing getaway you signed up for. Plus, with the added layer of potential racial discrimination, it's just not worth the risk. Look, I'm all for supporting local economies and experiencing different cultures, but there's a time and a place for everything. Next up on our list of maybe don't book that flight destinations, we've got Libya. Now, Libya has a history as colorful as its traditional fabrics, but unfortunately some of those colors are stained with, let's say, some not-so-great moments. We're talking about a history of racial violence and discrimination that, frankly, hasn't been fully addressed. And in a place where the rule of law can be as unpredictable as the desert wind, it's not exactly a recipe for a relaxing vacation. Imagine this, you're trying to bargain for a souvenir in a bustling Libyan market, and suddenly you realize that you're being followed. The point is, in a country with Libya's past, it's hard to shake off that feeling of unease. So, while Libya might have stunning coastlines and ancient ruins, it's important to remember that its beauty comes with a side of caution, especially for black travelers. Alright, moving on to a country that's about as welcoming as a closed door, North Korea. Now, North Korea is known for a lot of things, its secretive government, its strict rules, and its, let's say, unique approach to tourism. But what you might not know is that being black in North Korea can add a whole other level of complexity. See, North Korea isn't exactly known for its racial diversity, and their understanding of different cultures, well, let's just say it needs some work. Imagine this, you're on a tightly controlled tour, surrounded by nervous-looking guides, and you realize that you're the only person of color in sight. Suddenly, all those stories you've heard about North Korea's surveillance state start to feel a little too real. And trust me, you don't want to be on the wrong side of the North Korean government. So, unless you're really into propaganda posters and being constantly watched, I'd say maybe skip North Korea. Chapter 4. South Africa, the rainbow nation with a shadowy side. Now this one might surprise you, but our next destination is South Africa. Yes, the land of Nelson Mandela, the symbol of triumph over apartheid. But even in a country that's made incredible strides in racial equality, there's still a long way to go. South Africa, unfortunately, has a very high crime rate, and black travelers can sometimes find themselves targeted for robberies or worse. Imagine this. You're walking down a street in Johannesburg, enjoying the vibrant energy of the city, when suddenly you notice you're being followed. The hairs on the back of your neck stand up. Is it your imagination or is something wrong? That feeling of vulnerability, of constantly having to be on guard, can really put a damper on your trip. But until the issues of crime and safety are addressed, it's important for black tourists to be extra vigilant and take precautions to protect themselves. Chapter 5. Russia, from Cold War to cold shoulders. Alright, let's talk about Russia, the land of vodka, borscht, and, well, let's just say, a complicated history with race relations. Now, Russia might have some stunning architecture and cultural attractions, but it's also a place where racism can be as subtle as a whisper and as blatant as a billboard. You see, Russia hasn't quite grasped the concept of diversity. In fact, they seem to view it with the same suspicion as a capitalist trying to sneak into a communist rally. And that can make things, shall we say, interesting for black travelers. Imagine this. You're trying to order a coffee and the barista seems to look right through you. Or you're trying to get a taxi, and suddenly everyone's busy. Chapter 6, Afghanistan, where even the goats are stressed. Our next stop takes us to Afghanistan, a country that's been through more turmoil than a suitcase on a baggage carousel. And let's be real, folks, Afghanistan is not the place to be a tourist right now, especially not a black tourist. The country is still grappling with the aftermath of decades of conflict, and the security situation is, to put it mildly, volatile. We're talking about a place where even the goats look stressed. Now I know what you're thinking. Trevor, I'm pretty sure I can handle a stressed out goat. But trust me, the dangers in Afghanistan go way beyond grumpy farm animals. And for black travelers, there's the added risk of standing out in a country where being different can make you a target. Chapter 7, Saudi Arabia. Next up, we're heading to the land of oil, money, and well, a rather complicated relationship with human rights, Saudi Arabia. Now, Saudi Arabia might be known for its luxurious shopping malls and glitzy skyscrapers, but it's also known for its less than stellar track record on human rights, especially when it comes to race. See, Saudi Arabia operates under a system known as kafala, which essentially ties foreign workers to their employers, often leaving them vulnerable to exploitation and abuse. And guess what? Black workers are often at the bottom of that totem pole. Imagine this. You're working in Saudi Arabia, maybe as a teacher or a construction worker, and you find yourself treated like a second-class citizen subject to discrimination and unfair treatment. So, while Saudi Arabia might be tempting with its oil wealth and promises of adventure, it's important to remember that beneath the surface lies a system that can be incredibly oppressive, especially for black people. China, the land of the Great Firewall, and some not-so-great attitudes. Let's talk about China, the land of the Great Wall, delicious dumplings, and, well, a somewhat complicated relationship with black people. Now, China might be an economic powerhouse, but it's also a place where racial stereotypes and prejudices can sometimes feel as inescapable as the smog in Beijing. You see, China's never really had to deal with its own history of racial discrimination, which means that sometimes people just say what's on their minds. And what's on their minds can be, well, let's just say, surprisingly blunt. Imagine this. You're walking down the street, and people are staring at you, touching your hair, even taking pictures without asking. Now, not everyone in China is going to be like this, but it's something to be aware of, especially if you're black. Chapter 9. India, Bollywood Dreams and Colorism Nightmares. India, the land of spices, spirituality, and unfortunately a deeply ingrained system of colorism. Now, India might be known for its vibrant culture and welcoming people, but it's also a place where skin color can determine your social standing, your job prospects, even your marriage prospects. You see, in India, fairness is often equated with beauty and success, while darker skin is often seen as undesirable. It's a prejudice that runs deep, and it can manifest itself in all sorts of ways, from subtle discrimination to outright hostility. Imagine this. You're trying to buy some souvenirs at a market, and the vendor keeps ignoring you, helping lighter-skinned customers instead. Or you're trying to get a taxi, and the driver pretends he doesn't see you. Chapter 10. Iran, where visas can be trickier than a Rubik's Cube. Last but not least, we're heading to Iran, a country of ancient history, beautiful mosques and, well, let's just say, a somewhat complicated visa process, especially if you're black. Now, Iran might be on your travel bucket list for its stunning architecture and rich culture, but getting a visa can feel like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube blindfolded. You see, Iran has a history of being wary of Western influence, and sometimes that wariness can translate into, shall we say, a more stringent vetting process for certain nationalities, including people of African descent. Imagine this. You've spent weeks, maybe even months, gathering your documents, filling out forms, jumping through bureaucratic hoops, only to have your visa application denied with no explanation given. So, while Iran might be a fascinating country to visit, it's important to be aware of the potential challenges you might face as a black traveler, especially when it comes to the visa process. Travel safe, stay woke. Thanks for watching. We hope this video helps you make informed travel decisions. Remember, the world is a big, beautiful, and sometimes messy place, and it's important to be aware of the realities on the ground, especially when it comes to race and safety. Now, this isn't to say that black people should never travel to these countries, far from it, but it's about going in with your eyes wide open, being aware of the potential challenges, and taking steps to stay safe. Stay safe, and see you in the next video.